I want to say hi to Kylie Lowe from Joining Hands. Hey, Kylie.
Hi, Andy.
Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
Now, Joining Hands, we are going to talk about Joining Hands, but first up, who is Kylie Lowe? Where are you from? Where do you live?
So, my name's Kylie and I live in Brisbane and also Southern Gold Coast in Shugan. My background is 16 years working in youth homelessness, in residential youth care, youth detention centres, government and non-government.
In Queensland? Or
in Queensland. Yeah. And
why do you live in two places? We're jumping in. We're so jumping in. We're so interrupting.
I have two daughters who I live with when I'm in Brisbane, and my partner lived on the Gold Coast, so I've kind of created an existence so that I can be with him and my girls. So created Joining Hands to be Gold Coast and Brisbane so that I can, live like a bit of a gypsy.
You mentioned a career path, and there's a few intriguing things about that. You worked in the justice system. How long for, and what was that like for you?
That was with youth justice, so that was Queensland Government. I actually loved that work, but it was working with young people on community service orders and probation orders and in youth detention centres.
Isn't that weird? Because when you said detention centres, I thought, she must have been a warden. Were you ever a warden?
No.
Right.
No, youth work.
Kylie, I'm curious what brought you to, that theme of working with youth has been in your life for 16 years. What caused you to start on that path? Why did you think this is, or did you think, or did you just begin and then it opened up from there?
Was actually, if I reflect back when I was 21, I was studying psychology at university and knew I wanted to work with youth, and actually volunteered in a youth shelter in Toowoomba way back then, and then got into different fields and careers, and then came back to, I just actually started volunteering in 97 in a crisis youth shelter in Brisbane. So what runs through my blood is justice, social justice.
Why? If you look way back, did you have stuff go on where you saw injustice when you were young?
My upbringing was good and healthy, but just from a young age was just justice. So even in the schoolyard, fighting for the underdog and on the school bus, and didn't tolerate bullying. And then as a teenager, Mum and Dad had kind of wake up in the morning and there'd be 2 or 3 extra people on the lounge room floor that I would have brought home who had no home. So I thought that was okay. Not so much for Mum and Dad. I think
it's okay. Do you think it's okay to do that too?
Yeah, I did it as a kid.
If your son Josh brought home a couple of people that didn't have anywhere to stay, how would you cope?
Yeah, I think that'd be. I would totally respect his compassion. I've seen compassion pour out of Josh a few times in ways that surprised me, and definitely kind of broke my boundaries of what I thought was normal or whatever, but it moved me at all those times. So it was with you from a young age, clearly, like in your DNA, and just expressing itself in different ways. What was the transition for you from bringing homeless peers home to the house as a teenager to actually doing work in that arena?
It just evolved, I think, from uni, and then started volunteering. And when I started volunteering at the crisis youth shelter, I felt like this is my family. This is where I belong. That strong sense, and I loved it. And
then when you came into the Lighthouse Lounge, did you have that same sense of
Absolutely.
This is my family, this is where I belong?
Very relaxed.
And just before we go to a song, you mentioned that to cope with nerves, you kind of chanted all the way down. What were you chanting?
I did. I was chanting to Dave Stringer, Joy CD.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you give us a bar or two? You don't have to sing it in tune.
No.
Or you warm up those vocal cords. We'll get you after this song.
Here in the Lighthouse Lounge, we've got Dancing Dan still with us. He's waiting his turn to share a little bit more at the end of this interview. And I noticed, Dan, that you've been connecting with Kylie and hearing all the talk that happens while the songs are playing. What question would you like to ask Kylie next?
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Kylie, I'd just like to know what you'd like us to know about Joining Hands.
Okay, well, Joining Hands, we're a not-for-profit social enterprise, so my background was doing the youth homelessness, and then I'd started running free clinics with homeless young women and their children just once a month doing bone therapy and Reiki, and the results with their mental health and physical health were amazing. Couldn't get funding, so a friend of mine, our chairperson, wrote the business plan for a uni assignment, which I then took to my cousin, who is actually a shop fitter on the Gold Coast, and said, can I have 30 grand? And he said, I've got goosebumps. So he said, I need to talk to somebody else. So he went away and he came back and he said, sure, you can have 30 grand. So we sat down and had our first planning day on January 28, 2000.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
He got goosebumps because he loved the idea, right?
Yes.
Okay, please go on. Just wanted to check that. So you had your first meeting?
Yep. So we had a planning day 2012, and yeah, since then it's just evolved and grown, and I'm on a very big cosmic salary and work hard.
What's a cosmic salary?
The cosmic salary is kind of like a universal salary, so not paid always in money, but
paid with karma points.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to, before we move on, just acknowledge you for taking the seed of your idea and an impulse that was creative and not being done, and actually taking the steps to ground it in, and the huge thing of being able to go to someone that you know and say, hey, this is something we believe in, will you invest in it? And enroll someone in that is a huge, huge step, and a lot of dreams never make it to the next step because people think, oh, I'm never going to ask that person because they'll never say yes, or who am I to write a business plan or whatever. So just the fact that you've taken those steps and asked, it demonstrates, your commitment, which is huge.
You can tell Chip's a life coach, can't you?
Thank you.
And what's cool with your cousin, getting the goosebumps, a really cool thing I heard the other day, or like 8 years ago, that accepting help is a gift to the giver. So I'm sure he's loving that too.
And he said to me recently, he said the money that he's put in, he said the benefits that he's received far outweigh anything else, and he's loving. I'm learning about business, and he's learning about the justice side, and he gets to be involved with young people and running a mindfulness program. So it's a beautiful, beautiful exchange. Yeah, thank you.
I introduced the thing you're doing with Joining Hands as best I could from what I'd read on the media release. Maybe you can explain it by, okay, I'm a young person at risk. I come to Joining Hands and I have all sorts of needs. What am I likely to receive from you guys?
So at the moment, as I said, we run 2 free 3-hour monthly clinics, and at the moment that's me mainly doing that, and I'm just using bone therapy and Reiki, so body work and energy work, depending on the number of young people that turn up, depends on the length of treatment. Are
you the practitioner, or do you have bodywork and Reiki practitioners come in?
I'm the practitioner as well.
Yeah, wow.
I'll do everything.
And how many people normally come? What happens on a given day?
In Brisbane, because I've been doing the clinic there for 4 years, sometimes up to 12, 13 young women will come, and it runs alongside a self-care group that the Young Women's Service runs. Gold Coast Youth Service.
And ages? Age?
Generally 15, 16 up to 25, and then kids.
Gold Coast?
Gold Coast Youth Service is quite new, and it's been phenomenal, the support, one of the service, but also the youth workers talk to the young people, transport the young people, help with their kids. And last month I was there and 6 new young people came that had never met me, hopped up on that table. They're phenomenal.
It takes a lot of trust. I mean, one of the things I notice is when youth at risk come to some sort of atmosphere or non-profit which is set up to help them, they're often just really checking, can I trust these people? How do you go about establishing? Because it's a very, for want of a better word, intimate thing that you're offering. How do you go about engaging with the young people so that they actually are willing to get on the therapy table?
It's a good question. I think for Gold Coast Youth Service, which is quite new, I think it's been mainly a big part of that is the support of the youth workers who they trust and them vouching for me. And because I've got 16 years experience in frontline with vulnerable youth, that then gives you some kind of cred, one with staff, and I know how to build rapport with young people and kind of quickly, and having done crisis work with up to 8 young people and you're the only worker. And I don't know, there's just such a safe space that's created and held, and often, and that's why I love this work, they don't need to tell their story. Again, they can hop on the table, their body can tell me that story, so I'm working with the body, and often they hop on the table, they don't speak, they just can let go. It's beautiful.
Such a relief, isn't it? So you go, Chip.
We can rock, paper, scissors. I was going to say, it must be such a real gift to them not to have to explain themselves, not to have to justify themselves, not to be right or wrong, or,
and just the whole narrative, the whole talk, yeah.
But just to be held in that space must be incredibly profound for the people.
It is, and last time I was at Gold Coast Youth Service, there was one young man, and he'd hopped on the table, and he didn't say anything, and then at the end I was just cradling his head and just giving him Reiki, and he started sobbing, and I just let that be, and he sat up and he looked at me and he said, "What was that?" And I said, "That's Reiki." I said, "It's universal life force energy." I said, "That's unconditional love and light." And he looked at me and he said, "Oh," he said, "no wonder." He said, "I've never been held like that in my whole life." So I cried. He said, "Can I have a hug?" And we had a hug. And that's the beautiful thing with this work. This is who I am more so than the counselling role was. It can...
transcends language.
It does.
and I want to thank you for bringing that universal light here into the studio, because just in that story I feel touched. And lastly, before we say farewell, what's the way to get in touch online to find out more?
So, our website's www.joininghands.org.au, and how you can support us, because how we make, as a social enterprise, we've got 5 products, so the income we make, that's how we feed back in. And we've got a retreat coming up, which is going to be held at Gunnerbah Retreat Centre from Friday the 25th of October through to the 27th of October. And if you give that gift to yourself and attend that retreat, that's also giving back to community. And that retreat, there'll be Nia dance with 2 local teachers from Ocean Shores, and meditation, yoga, and local Gold Coast band, the Lamplights, are donating their time to run music workshops and a house concert.
Beautiful. So it's a retreat for adults to go and experience Nia and the meditative arts, but their tuition for the retreat goes into supporting Joining Hands.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Enabling the at-risk youth who can't pay for those sort of services to get them free.
Very cool.
Okay, nicely summed up. Thank you so much for coming in, and I really, once again, just want to acknowledge that light that you have brought into the Shire through coming on the wireless.